I'm Elizabeth Evans, and I'm a homeschooling mom of 4 young kids. I'm figuring this out as I go, but I'm here to talk to Bonnie, who has been writing and speaking on the subject for over a decade and has been homeschooling for 3 decades.
My name's Bonnie Landry. I've got 7 kids. They're ages 13 to 33. I've been homeschooling for 29 years. I'm a wife, a mom, a grandma. I'm a speaker and a writer, and I'm an advocate of joy. So we're here to provide this podcast so that homeschooling can look like you imagined it to be. Hello, good evening.
Hello. How's everything up in the Pacific Northwest?
Pacific Northwest, yeah. It's very, very good. We have family here still, so they'll be here until September 10th.
Okay.
This week, my sons both leave to go to university. So one leaves on the 1st. Well, I'm taking him over to the mainland. Because he needs my truck, because he's renting a house and he's gonna need furniture, and we're hitting
Right.
Yeah. And then my other son leaves the next day for his first year away. So
Wow.
that feels really big. But then my daughter and her family are here for another week or so after that. So that'll be really nice to be kind of
Okay. That probably helps to kind of buffer the sadness, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of a hard one. Yeah. With them all gone at the same time. Yeah.
Right. I can't imagine, but I know you'll rock it.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure I'll cry anyway.
Yeah. It's only natural.
How about things in Michigan?
Oh, good. We started school this week, and I am trying not to assume it'll keep going this well.
Yeah. One day at a time, right?
Yeah. It's been fun this year. And I feel like I went in knowing, kind of like when we read aloud our literature book, like I went in knowing to ask questions and not just read and leave it at that. And
right. So do you feel like our discussions have really changed things for you, or not that much?
I feel like it's changed things a lot. I feel a lot more, I think, peace. And I feel just more, just relaxed, and,
nice.
Like my husband and I, we did the, we don't have what was it called? Like Michigan doesn't have requirements like other states have.
Right.
But we still wrote out that overview of our year, which really helped when we were really scheduling things. And
it helps you feel settled, right?
Yeah. And I think more confident. And then the other thing we did is we did an Excel spreadsheet of what each kid's like subjects and the name of the book. And I put it in one of those binder sleeves so that I could check it off every day.
I love those things. I buy them by the 100 at Staples. I love those things.
Yeah, they're really convenient.
Yeah.
So then every day we just kind of check things off with a dry erase marker as we go, so that we can really see what we have left. And
you're finding your groove for sure, eh?
Yeah. And the kids seem really just happy, and they're settling in well.
Now, is it hard? Like, I don't start school usually to the middle of September, because it really starts to become fall here at that point, and I just want to really soak up those last days of summer. Yeah. You're finding your kids, or is it sort of a soft start? Where you're not doing too much right away, but you're you know what I mean? Like, how do you start? Yeah. Or do your kids miss kind of the summer stuff? That's what I'm wondering.
No, we just kind of jumped full in, and mostly I was getting excited as we planned. But also one of my sons was in tears one day because we hadn't done math in a long time.
Oh, yeah. That's so mean.
Yeah, I know. How dare I?
Yeah.
So he just really wanted to start, and not that his brother did, but my oldest has been settling in nicely. And actually Tuesday he was up before I was, and he had already done his cursive practicing without even being told. And I mean, he did it fine. And so they're both just kind of excited. They will protest occasionally, but it's not no, I hate school. And I'm hoping that
for me and my kids as well, like I love the summer sort of non-routine and throwing off the routine and all that. But I do start to crave it. By the end of the summer, I'm really
Yeah.
craving, getting back into a routine.
Right. Yeah. And actually, our first day back went longer than I anticipated. We actually were still having studies after lunch. But
Okay.
then Tuesday rolled around and everything we seemed to finish in the morning, with the exception of our read aloud book, which I had planned to do while my daughter was napping anyway. So,
Right.
yeah, it's been
Nice.
fun. And
Okay. Good to hear.
yeah. So, but actually that brings up a really good question. And I actually didn't write down who asked it, but I feel like it's probably a question a lot of people have. What do you do when you're trying to teach, the older kids and the younger ones are having a really hard time occupying themselves, or maybe they're overly fidgety to be in your lap? And I know you've talked about before where you'd often have another one sitting with you, but
Right.
my daughter will not sit for that. She just gets in.
Right. Well, when my kids got to be about your kids' ages, when the oldest, your son's almost 9, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, around that sort of 9, 10 age. What I started doing, because really those first few years are kind of the hardest, because you don't have any helpers, but they kids really respond well to, knowing, most kids anyway, kind of knowing that they're needed in family life, right? They're a helpful part of family life. And so I would have an older child watch the busy toddler, that age, like a baby is fine. They're going to, for the most part, just sit on your lap. But a toddler wants to be out doing things in general.
Right.
But they also need to be safe. There's sort of that age range. I find, especially between about 18 months and 3 was really hard. After about 3, they can kind of occupy themselves and be happy for them, depending on the child, of course. But
Right.
So that window was when I often pulled in an older child, and I would only ask them to watch a sibling while I was working with another child, like one other child. So then, say, for example, I might get a 12-year-old to say, okay, can you watch, Lydia while I sit down with Noah? Right. And they know that that's not going to be more than about 20 minutes. Okay. So they watch them, they play Play-Doh or play Playmobil, or,
right.
My kids would often go sit with their toddler sibling and sit at the piano and get them to, they could bang on the piano or take them outside if the weather was nice.
Right.
And then once I went to do another child, I would get somebody else to watch that toddler. So they didn't feel like it was burdensome. Right. That was important to me, that it wasn't burdensome. I had, when I first met my husband has like 75 first cousins. He's, from big families. And some of the older cousins, like they're adults now, they're in their 30s or 40s even. But they complained a lot about having to babysit their younger siblings or their younger cousins. And I thought, gee, I never want to feel like my kids are really burdened. Right. But at the same time, we all need to pitch together and help out, right? So I tried to be sensitive to, how much was the right amount without being too much that the child's going to feel really, like they can't get their things done because they're watching their sibling, or they're getting irritated with their sibling, right? Because you don't want that either. You want it to be pleasant. So that was how we managed that. And of course, that's harder when you only have little kids. We had some years where I got someone to come in and help a couple times a week, and basically the help was kind of keeping the little kids busy while I did other things, right? And that was really helpful. Sometimes you have a homeschool neighbor, or you can trade off with another mom or whatever, so you can feel like you get some of those things done.
Sure.
So wiggly kids, it's harder, but of course when everything's short, that definitely makes it more manageable.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, another thing too that I think is really important, if you don't have older kids that can help out, or if you're having, pushback about that, is corralling your kids. Mm-hmm. And I always recommend this when you're reading aloud. Have your house set up in such a way that you can see wherever your little kids are, like the ones you'd be worried about their safety.
Yeah.
So those high up hooks and eyes, on doors. We used to have one on 2 doors, one that led to our mudroom and laundry room, and another one that led to downstairs, and then a gate across the hallway that would go upstairs, so that, you know, my kids were basically corralled in the kind of kitchen sitting area, for that period of time, so that I knew where they were, unless they were with another sibling, that I knew where they were. And that corralling was so important, because it's really awful for a kid to, you're sitting there and you're helping them with math or you're helping them with dictation, for you to say, oh, just got to go check on where the toddler is. You know, that's frustrating to just sit and wait. Right. So corralling, I think, is really important, you know, and you can get these big wide baby gates now, or you can, you know, push a piece of plywood up against if you have a big wide opening that your kids, you know, can get away on. So that's just helpful, right? To be able to have everybody within, you know, I have a visual on everybody. Right. Yeah. Our main floor is pretty, it's not quite open concept, but it's like wide opening doorways and stuff. So we don't have much of an issue with that, but my daughter is really, really good at figuring out how to get past stuff. So some kids are amazing. It's just incredible. I know I've talked about her mischievousness. Is that the word? But okay. Yeah. I actually, some kids don't, I mean, my daughter's 20 months old, so not quite 2 yet. And she doesn't stay occupied with things for very long, but for any moms that want an edible, distraction. I saw the other day a mom posted that she will take like stale cereal, and just other edible things and put it in a food processor and blend it up really fine and put it in, you know, like those small storage containers with like spoons and little cups for just like, what do you call it? Tactile play. Right. Oh, fun. Okay. Yeah. So I did that the other day with, I think it was coconut flakes and stale tortilla chips. And it wasn't sharp at all, you know, because chips can get kind of pointy. And it ended up all over the floor. They can dig in. It doesn't matter if they put some in their mouth. Right. And it was good. We did that with millet and rice quite a bit, you know, and I would bury toys in them, but millet and rice, you don't want a little kid putting them in their mouth for sure, right? But that's a great idea. Yeah. So I can't take credit for it, but I'm sharing it. And okay, good. Yeah. It worked for a small time, but it worked. Well, hey, any 10 minutes you can buy, that's good. Right. Yeah. And then today, actually, my 4-year-old really, really just wants to write and participate in school stuff. And so he'll ask me how to spell words, but he hasn't really done letters yet. That's my own fault. So I sat down with him and I was trying to help him write. And then I realized this is too big. And I don't have sand, but I have flour. So I poured flour in like a lid of one of my casserole dishes. And it was so messy, but I was helping him learn to trace, you know, letters. So I'd show him how to do a capital A and a lowercase a. And awesome. I was all excited when he did it right. And then I just let him play in it for a bit. Yeah. Sometimes the mess is worth it. I mean, sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. One of the things that there's a non-messy thing that we came across that years ago that they still make them. They're called Wikki Stix. Oh yeah. And they're like a candle wick piece of string. Yeah. And they're covered in colored wax. And they were one of the things I would bring out. You know, I'm doing schoolwork with these guys and I'll bring these out. And you can bend them. Yeah. And you can make them into letters. You can make them into structures. Like they're really cool because they're kind of a stiff wax. Yeah. So yeah, I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But my kids had a lot of fun with Wikki Stix. Okay. And they're, you know, if they put them in their mouth, it wouldn't matter. It's just wax. Yeah. Right. Okay. That's cool. I mean, if they ate them, they'd probably wreck them, but you know, like chewed on them, but that's okay. They're not expensive, you know, and you get a big sort of package of them in all different colors. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. 'Cause pipe cleaners, I think, would be a comparable thing, but you've got that sharp wire. I know. Yeah. These were like my answer to pipe cleaners because at the time that's kind of what I was looking for. And then I don't know, somebody must've told me about Wikki Stix, or I found them at the toy store or something, and they stick together. So it's super easy to stick together. Right. Yeah. So you can just press two ends together, just like you would with, you know, kind of a malleable wax. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. We also have Kinetic sand, which I've seen that stuff. I've never had it. It looks amazing.
Yeah, my kids love it. And we'll just put like, I got it a couple years ago to try and do like an Egyptian lesson. So I forget what they're called, but they're these tubes you can get at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and they have different themes. So you can get a tube that has like these little miniature birds or farm animals. And so I had gotten one that was just like all these Egyptian, you know, pieces like pyramids and
Cool.
one of those cats, you know.
Okay, so for people listening who don't know what kinetic sand is, just describe it, okay?
So it's sand, but it's not
Excuse me.
like powdery and fine. It kind of all sticks together. So it's moldable, but it also just will kind of fall apart in your hands.
And it's not sticky, right?
Right. No, it is sticky if like water gets in it.
Okay. Okay, good to know. Yeah.
Experience.
Away from the kitchen.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I felt it in our toy store. They have like a little, tray that you can touch these things.
Right.
So I felt it before, but I didn't know what all the qualities of it were. But I thought, oh, this is cool because it doesn't feel yucky either.
Right.
For kids who don't like yucky, it felt nice. It felt nice.
And it's kind of a mix. It can be messy, but it's also really easy to clean up because you just take a little wad of it and you dab up the other pieces.
That's what I was wondering, is if that's how it works. Okay.
Yeah. So it's great. And we just bought a new pack for a fresh year, and
so what is a pack? Like, does it come with multicolors?
So you can get colored. You can't. When I went to the store the other day to replenish ours, they didn't have any colors.
Right.
So I just got the generic. It looks like you find it on the beach.
Okay.
But I've seen purple and blue. And sometimes you can buy it and it comes with like moldable things. Like you can buy one that has pieces to make castles. So like little molds for making like a sand castle.
So how much would you get? Like how many cups would you get if you buy a packet of it? Would it be enough for more than one child?
Yeah. So I bought, let's see, was it a 1 or 2 pound? And I just bought it at our local, grocery department store combination. And it was about $10.
Okay.
And it usually lasts us the whole year.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So I think I bought 1 or 2 packs. And they were like, I don't know. I can't remember how many pounds. I want to say 1 or 2
for your
pounds.
4 kids kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's pop that in the show notes and then.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah.
I just didn't do that route this time. So
yeah.
Lots of options out there.
I know. Yeah. And a lot of people too, like if they say, for example, where I work, I could sit at my school table with my kids and I could put a 2 or 3-year-old, pull a stool up to the sink, fill a sink up with bubbly water, and I could see them. So they're having safe water play.
Sure.
But that keeps kids busy for 10 or 15 minutes, right? Anything, any 10 or 15 minutes you can get.
Yeah. My mom did that once at my house. I think it was right after I had my daughter. And I go into the kitchen and there was a pool of water that had flowed from my sink all the way into my dining room, which unfortunately is carpeted. So what had happened was the water was running from my kid's elbow onto a cutting board that was just so that it was running onto the floor. And nobody had realized it. I mean, it was a mess. So
we used to throw down a beach towel and then put the stool on top of that.
Yeah.
So, when there was spillover, that at least something would catch it, right?
Right. Yeah. That's what I definitely do now. So, okay. Well, we talked a little bit about what to do with the little ones. But maybe now we can talk about how to encourage sibling relationships and also how to deal with sibling rivalry.
Right.
So how did you handle such things?
I mean, I think that, this is a real issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Siblings fighting, because siblings do fight. So in terms of, let's just focus on younger kids for the moment. I think diversion is one of our best tools as parents to be able to deal with situations, right? Yeah. And so sometimes for mom, that's going to mean saying, hey, let's go outside and kick a ball around. or, hey, let's go outside to the swing set, or you guys are having a hard time getting along. Is there something that we could do that would be fun for both of you?
Yeah.
You know, and of course, you know, if kids aren't being safe in terms of if they're actually fighting, you know, you need to get in between them, right?
Right.
And you know, not make sure nobody gets hurt. But even then, once we do that, a diversion is usually your best tactic, you know, like, so deal with the not getting along later, right? That, okay, let's break this up. Let's, you know, this is not safe. Let's go do something else, you know, or you're hurting so-and-so's feelings or whatever. So why don't I pop you guys in the tub? Or why don't I go out for a walk? Or why don't we play a game together, right? Get involved, okay? That's the most important thing, I think, is that parents getting involved. And, you know, diverting the attention to something constructive, right? So throwing a ball or kicking a ball or playing on the swing set or whatever. And that takes the emotions down usually, right? It just takes all the emotions down. But then later on, I think we always need to spend some time, you know, Gordon Neufeld calls this soliciting good intentions, with the idea being saying, you know, sometimes you get really cranky with your, you know, your baby brother and, you know, or your little brother. And, you know, is he doing things that bug you? Could we manage the situation a little bit better? Kind of coming alongside them, assuming that they don't mean to hurt anybody and hurt their feelings or hurt them physically or whatever. Kind of solicit their best intentions, so that you just wanted some time to yourself, or you just wanted to have him not get in your game, or you try and label for, if the child's unable to label, try and label it for them, right? You know, that was really bugging you because, and they might say, well, no, that wasn't it. It was something else, right? And then, you know, we can be understanding with that, like, oh, okay, so you just wanted to play Play-Doh by yourself for that reason. Would it help if, you know, I put you guys in two different areas to play Play-Doh? Or you know, of course, depending on the circumstances. But that's one thing. We should always talk about it, but not necessarily in the moment when you know, all the emotions are high. So later on, and then both the siblings is like, you know, I don't know why you were fighting. Both siblings might have a different idea of what actually happened, right? So you're dealing with, say, a 6-year-old and 8-year-old. You know, one might say, oh, he was picking on me, and the other one might say, well, he was taking my stuff away from me. Right? So, you know, if we have a chance to talk to them one-on-one, then it gives us more sort of fodder to be able to manage the situation without them getting at each other, right? And, you know, sometimes even in the moment, right? You know, hey, listen, I know you don't want to be hurting your brother right now, right? You know, what you're saying is hurtful. I know you're frustrated, but what you're saying is hurtful. And, you know, let's just cool off for a little bit. And then, you know, we can talk about it after, right? Things are rarely handled really well in the middle of really getting to the heart of the problem in the middle of all the emotions, right?
You know,
and I think as parents too, like sometimes we think, well, why on earth is there sibling rivalry? Because, you know, we try, all of us, of course, thoughtful parents are going to try to be fair. And, but sometimes what is required of a parent to give to a child is, for one child, is different than for another child, right? And you know, I think that this idea of fair doesn't always mean the same, you know, dealing with a child in the same way as you deal with another child, right? But the way the child experiences what you're doing could make all the difference. There's a really, really beautiful book called The 5 Love Languages, and it's meant for married couples, but they've also got a book called The 5 Love Languages for Children. And that's really lovely, because as a parent, what a gift to give your child to be able to understand what it is that resonates with them and makes them feel loved. And it might be quite different from you. I'll just give you an example of how this played out in my life. I read that book as I was maybe 30 when I read it. I read the first one, and it suddenly made me realize that my mom loved to give gifts, right? Usually a person expresses love in the same way that they appreciate it being expressed back to them.
Sure.
And so my mom loved to give gifts, and she put a lot of time and effort into gift giving and finding exactly the right gift and really, really thoughtful gifts. That wasn't particularly meaningful to me. But once I knew that about her,
Right.
then I understood how I could best show her that I love her. And it was in gifts, and it wasn't anything expensive or, you know, whatever,
Right.
but little things that made her know I was thinking of her in that particular way.
Right.
Right.
See, and
And
that's the key, because that's
yeah,
actually one of my husband and I have talked about. We haven't read the book, but we're aware of it and what they mean. And my love language is one of them is receiving gifts. And I don't mean like go buy me expensive things. Like
yeah,
just handing me a cup of coffee that you thought of me is like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, what? You know, it's just even the tiniest thing. Like when one of my kids brings me a dandelion puff, because
yeah.
I love those and my kids know it. So when they start popping up, they like sprint to hand me these
Oh,
dandelion puffs
so
because they
sweet.
know I
Yeah,
love them. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
You know, so it, like, for Albert and I, my primary love language is physical touch, right? And his is sort of quality time. So we've discovered that as a married couple, the best thing that we can do together is like sit and watch a movie together and hold hands,
yeah,
right? Or he'd massage my feet or whatever. And
yeah,
because for me, you know, I'm sort of indifferent about the movie, but for him, like just the fact that I would sit with him, his, you know, his favorite thing would be for me to just spend time with him. Even if he's working in the garden, if I was just standing there talking to him,
yeah,
you know, that would make him happy. Where for me, you know, I need to be held, I need to be hugged, you know, I need
right,
somebody to just even touch my shoulder, whatever, that makes me feel loved, right? And so
yeah,
so the book Love Languages for Children is really lovely because we don't always understand as an adult how our children might not perceive, even though we're pouring out our time and our effort and our,
sure.
you know, maybe words of affirmation, maybe that's not the way they experience love,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I think they're both really lovely books. I would highly recommend those as really easy reads,
Okay.
as basic parenting books to have on your shelf.
Sure. And
Yeah.
if I could just continue that a bit, my husband and I were just talking the other night because we, as most parents, really kind of study our kids' behavior and
Hmm.
analyze it to see how we can improve, what we need to change to help
And
them.
overanalyze it, right?
Oh, for sure. Yes. But recently we were talking about, we've kind of figured out our middle son really just likes that. He likes playing games with us. He that's how he feels important is, do you want to play a game with me? You know, just
Right.
simply sitting, playing a game. That's, he just loves it. And also he's really good with like the dictation, that one-on-one, he just feels
Yeah.
so special. He actually, the first day we started school this week, that night we did our family prayers and they were sent off to bed. And he's my son that he's more likely to kind of forget to give the hug and kiss goodnight. Like, I like
Right.
to think of it as he just feels very secure and he doesn't
Yeah.
need it. I'm
Yeah.
hoping
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
But that night he purposely ran up, gave me a big hug.
Aw.
And I said, this was a good day. I hope tomorrow's a good day. And he goes off to bed and then he turns and he looked at me and his eyes kind of started to tear up. And I said, what's
Aw.
wrong? And he comes running back, gives me a hug, and he goes, I just love you so much. And I was like, oh
Aw.
my gosh. It was like
Aw.
the best. So I
Yeah.
think all of that one-on-one time, he just really felt it.
Eats it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the more we can, one of the things, the points they make in the book is that children, especially the smaller the child, the more it is that they need all of the love languages, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing for us to know that all these things are going to be important to them, but there's probably one dominant
Sure.
thing that they require, right, to really feel loved. And certainly as
Yeah.
they get older, that's going to probably narrow down a little bit more.
Right. And can
Yeah.
I just say that it's kind of empowering as a parent to kind of figure this stuff out, because
Yeah. Oh,
then it really
yeah.
helps with kind of fixing behavior issues that you
Yeah.
can come across throughout the week,
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think I'm definitely going to check out the book.
Yeah,
for
it's lovely.
children. Yeah.
I personally would recommend reading the adult one first,
Okay.
because it's going to give you more of the kind of foundation to then read the kids one. Not that it would be, absolutely necessary, but it
Yeah.
just gives you a bit more of a foundation of, okay, somebody whose love language is, words of affirmation. What does that actually mean?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Um, okay. So we did address sibling rivalry, but what about the opposite? How do you encourage those good relationships?
Good relationships. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because depending on your children, sometimes they sort of are being raised in a sense, and you might have a couple of kids who are even close in age who don't really have the same interests, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's not so much that they don't get along, it's that their interests are not the same. Two of my older daughters, it was interesting because they were quite close in age, they're just 2 years apart, and yet they didn't really play together that much until they hit a certain age. I don't remember exactly what it was, like 6 and 8 or 7 and 9. And they both discovered that they really loved crafts. And so suddenly that door opened where they spent a lot of really lovely time together doing crafts.
Okay.
And it was like, oh, for me, it was kind of this eye opener, like, okay, they have found their common ground, right? So I think that for all of our kids, we sort of need to be thinking about that, especially if you feel like I don't think we can force sibling relationships, right?
Yeah.
I think that different siblings are going to be closer, and that's a reality as they get older.
Sure.
Because of their interests or because of their personalities. But in general, you want your kids to get along with each other. So, but I think when they're young, finding those common bonds, for my boys, it was definitely sort of sports, right? Like, get out and play basketball together, get out and rollerblade in the driveway together, that sort of thing.
Right.
Or play ping pong or foosball or whatever. Those things were really important bonding parts of their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you might have to think about that. Okay, what interests do they share, or what could I expose them to? Board games, for example. Some of my kids love board games. I'm talking about my older kids. They love board games. They love to play board games with each other. That's what they do when they get together, right? Others not interested in board games at all, right? But yeah, but they will find the things that they do, like maybe going to movies together or something like that, right? The things that they do enjoy together, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I would say how that's helpful in developing sibling relationships is finding the common things, and a lot of times you need to be in the mix too in order to make that work, right?
Sure. Yeah, especially when they're
the
young.
younger they are.
Yeah, that makes sense.
My adult kids do not require me to play board games with them. I really dislike board games.
Okay. My mom's the same way. There's only one game that she will play with us, and that's Parcheesi. And I don't know why. And she doesn't really know why, but I mean, my dad loves board games. So my siblings and I grew up loving to play board games, but we're so spread out in age. Like my sister's 21, my brother just turned 16, and I'm 31.
Right.
So there was always just dad and one kid. So it's kind of hard to play a lot of board games with just two people.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it was really neat when my kids got to be sort of, tweens and teens kind of ages, and they started playing board games with each other, right?
Yeah.
That was really fun. Yeah, I like the sort of the word type games. I like Scrabble.
Okay.
I like trivia kind of games and stuff like that, but I'm not really interested in any sort of those strategy, Catan type games, and they love them. They go on for hours, and it's really, it's a beautiful thing when you, as a mom, even with your adult kids, to see your adult kids having a really nice time together, right?
Sure. Yeah. So the next question is, how can we make a co-op work? What can co-op leaders do to make attending worthwhile?
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I guess I've had a lot of experience myself with co-ops. I've done lots of co-ops over the last, I would say, 10 years.
Sure.
And so I don't totally know where the question is coming from. Is it a co-op that needs a certain amount of kids in order to make it work? I don't know. How do you attract people to your co-op? I've always felt really strongly that if anything is going to happen, and this is co-ops, homeschooling, parish events, and all of that, the things really need to grow organically.
Sure.
So there kind of has to already be a need. So in my world, what was really important to me to do in doing co-ops was that I was going to be accomplishing something that benefited my kids, right? So I'm not going to have a co-op if it's not going to benefit my kids, because then I feel like I'm taking time away from my own family in order to provide a co-op. Okay. So then I would start with that. Okay. There's an organic beginning. I want to do some writing with my kids in kind of a small group setting, and so I could put it out to other moms. Okay, I'm going to do a co-op. We're going to focus on some writing and some speech arts. That tends to be the stuff I do. So would any of your kids be interested? And what I would do is kind of send a bit of a
like a questionnaire?
Not a questionnaire, but like a syllabus.
Okay.
This is what I'm hoping to accomplish. I want to do some speech arts. That's going to include memorizing poetry. It's going to include some impromptu skits. It's going to include ways we can improve our public speaking. Then I want to do some writing. We're going to learn how to do a paragraph. We're going to maybe do a couple of essays. I would sort of give a bit of an outline of what I wanted to cover. And that way the kids and the parents could look at it and say, yes, I'm in, or no, I'm not.
Right.
Okay. And so what I would experience is organic growth. And some years that's going to be really vigorous, right? To the point where you have too many kids. And some years that's going to be, maybe thin. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I might tailor it. If I've got running a co-op where I've only got 5 or 6 kids, that's going to look quite different than if I've got 12 or 14 kids. Right. And so I would suggest to people that if you're going to run a co-op, really get together with 2 or 3 moms and say, what is it you'd like to see in a co-op? Is that an attractive idea to you? What works for your family? Mm-hmm. In a lot of settings, having families kind of be, for example, if it's with the oldest kids in a family and there's a bunch of little kids, see if one of the moms would like to get together, either at her house or in her basement or something like that, and do something with the little kids, like even just play, so that the parents don't feel like they're separating out the older kids and having to get them somewhere. And, we want it to be no pressure, right? So those are 2 really big factors. No pressure, pulling in the whole family. And I don't mean for the co-op learning necessarily, but in some capacity. So it's kind of worth the mom's while. Okay, my little kids are going to be doing X while my older kids are going to be doing X.
Okay.
Right. And so I would start there, ask moms, like, what is it, here's the things I have to offer. I have to offer language and speech arts and maybe taking kids on field trips. Those are the kinds of things that I would do. Maybe some literature discussion. What would you like to see? What do you have to offer? Because we could do an hour of writing and then an hour of, if they're a sciencey kind of mom, you could do experiments with the kids. Mm-hmm. Or you could do some games, outdoor games or something like that, right? Yeah. So I think that we have to sort of put the feelers out. If you're trying to make a co-op happen, that you have a set idea of what it is you want to do, and you're trying to attract more people because becomes viable with more people, I think then you have to just make it really clear what you're wanting to accomplish. And send that out to the moms that if they're dealing with younger children, then saying we would like to accommodate the younger kids, or you can just drop your child off for the afternoon or whatever. Try and accommodate. But the other thing that I think has been really vital for all of our co-ops is it's been really important to me that the kids have time to play.
Okay.
So we do an hour of writing or an hour and a half of writing and speech arts or whatever. Then you guys have an hour or 2 to play, right? And even the teenagers, they just want to do something. They don't just want to go to my house and do schoolwork, and then go home, right? They want to have some fun. And so I would leave them time for board games or time to play outside or go for a walk or whatever it is they wanted to do. That was of interest, but just some time together, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I think with younger kids, that's even more important that you do, little kids do 20 minutes of co-op time and then give them lots of time to play, right?
Okay.
Co-ops are almost as important for moms too as they are for kids, just to get together and be able to
socialize.
Yeah. And we know our family is normal because of hanging out with other families and just feeling the normalness of, maybe whiny kids or happy kids or, kids in puberty or whatever, you know what I mean? You feel normal because you're around people, right?
Right.
So it's a community building. Yeah. So if that leads to more questions about co-ops, let me know, but I'm just not having a full picture of where the question was coming from.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for this week.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
So what's up for next week?
We have some questions about prayer and spirituality and how to incorporate daily mass.
Okay, nice.
So,
all right. The prayer life with children, that can be really challenging.
Yes, it can.
Or finding your own prayer life when you have little kids. That sounds like a great topic.
Yeah.
Okay. So if people have questions specifically about that topic or any other topic that you'd like us to add to our list, you can contact me via my website, bonnielandry.ca, or my Facebook pages, Make Joy Normal and Homeschool Moms Who Drink Wine. You can message me also on my personal page, Bonnie Landry. We love having your questions come in.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.